All right, and what an announcement it really has been in a speech that is still going on. 55 minutes dedicated to telecom, and why not? Because it does really change the rules of the game. Sanjay Kapoor, the announcement is finally out. The tariff plans are out too. For the next 3 months, it's going to be free service. But voice will be free for life on the RIL Jio network. My question to you really is that a fair assumption then to make that India will be a voice-free market because incumbents will have to follow suit?
Look, Supriya, nobody was expecting an incrementalism in what was going to be announced today. Everybody knew it's going to be transformational. And I think the attempt here has been to really change the rules of the games. Now, what is free and what is not free is a matter of debate. The issue is that simplicity has been brought into the way the tariffs will be defined in this country. The world over, there are bucket plans. Everybody pays for a bucket, and then there are no surprises. Voice is rolled into it, data is rolled into it, messaging is rolled into it, and at places content is rolled into it. Now I think India has clearly moved towards that regime. Now instead of paying for voice, we are going to be paying for data, right? We are also going to be moving from a calling party pays regime to both party pays. Because when you pay for data, you pay both legs of incoming and outgoing.
Right.
But the fact is, from a consumer's perspective, he's only going to be paying for data going forward, right? The second thing that is going to be introduced in the tariffing is the granularity. You remember when 1 second granularity came into picture, actually the entire granularity factor of the industry got evaporated. Now when you pay for buckets, the granularity factor comes back because everybody doesn't round it off to the last T, and therefore there is some bit of granularity that sets in. But the fact is that the entire announcement and the entire approach is game changing. To a common man, the voice is becoming free. To a common man, the data is becoming cheaper. Youth is the biggest consumer of data, and there's something special with another 25% bonus thrown for the youth.
That's right.
And the very fact
Sanjay,
that nobody has
there, because I want to get in a varied views here, and I want to get in everybody's views to begin with, and then we'll go have a more detailed discussion. Rajan Matthews, the question is coming your way that I asked Sanjay Kapoor there. It is going to be a voice-free market after the announcement that was made today. Incumbents can no longer charge for voice. The rules of the game in telecom have changed completely beginning today. Rajan Matthews.
Yes, Supriya, thank you. First of all, I don't think voice is going away. Us Indians have the highest amount of voice minutes that we use. So voice is going to be a continuous composition of the total usage of the bucket. So however you price it, it's obviously a bundled offer. It's obviously encapsulated in data. But the question is how much of it is going to be voice oriented, how much is going to be pure quote unquote data oriented. Again, we all recognize that in an all data type of environment, and like in LTE, the use of voice, if the predominant usage is voice, it's not a very efficient use of an LTE data network. So again, that puts additional capacity. The capacity goes up in usage very quickly. So I think these are all the dynamics that's going to play out into the market. Certainly very compelling offers. I think competitively they will put the incumbents in terms of a rethink mode on some of the pricing points. But I think it's moving to a point. So for example, $4.99, that's an ARPU that the industry would love to be able to move up to from the 180 rupees. So I think this is the dynamics that's going to play out. Not all bad news, good news for the consumer, challenging for the industry, but not something that everybody is going to be quaking about.
I do want to ask you that question though. The fact that he's announced voice free, and I know you explaining that rather well of how the capacities need to go up and LTE is perhaps going to be not used as much if voice is going to be used. But the fact is he's giving data at 50 per GB per month, and you know that's important. It's at a fraction of a cost at what the incumbents give it. So price points are very, very aggressive. And I want to go back to the question of voice. If RIL Jio is going to offer free voice, can the big GSM, can Airtel, Vodafone and Idea now shy away from charging for voice? Rajan.
So I think the question will be if it is going to be bundled, you're still paying something. Again, the end user is going to have to decide how quickly they eat into the 1 gigabit bucket. So that ultimately is going to be the proof of the pudding. It's the total share of wallet or the total amount of money that you have to put in. I think you can competitively price to this, although the headlines which says free voice will have to be sort of designed appropriately. But I think these are price points on a bundle basis that the competition can very well deal with.
There is also a question that I want to ask both you and Sanjay, but I will begin with you, Rajan, there. Jio's app will be free for the existing users till December of 2017, and for the next 3 months, which is up until the end of December, there is a welcome offer which is absolutely free, and that was the big point of contention between between the GSM operators and RIL Jio. He's reached out to operators, and I'm going to touch upon that a little later, but what do you make of the offer, the welcome offer that's absolutely free, and it does negate all the concerns that some of you had raised?
So Supriya, absolutely, every operator is free to, on their own network, offer whatever they want to do. That goes without saying. I think the question is this commercial service? And I think we get back to this phase of saying, look, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck. So I think every instance that we've seen in terms of the announcement really in reality says that for all intents and purposes, commercial service is going to begin on September 5th. There's a period of a free offer. And so I think that's the way most of the industry will probably look at parsing it, although the December 31 seems to be quote unquote the commercial launch. I think that distinction really goes away with what we've heard today.
All right, that distinction goes away. Rajan Matthew, stay with us because I do want to get in Sanjay Kapoor into this discussion as well. And I want to carry forward with the appeal that Mukesh Ambani made and then, of course, very generously turned to your legal obligations. So I'm going to come to that in just a bit. But Sanjay Kapoor, the question that we were talking about, voice free, you'll have to see how it really plays out, but the fact is that these are very, very aggressive price points that we're talking about. I mean, data from 149 per month to 499. Look at the phone prices, 299. I mean, this is very, very aggressive. Can big GSM or incumbents really match up to this? Because we were having this chat about this not really being a tariff game anymore. It looks like price is a big talking point here. Sanjay.
So Supriya, let me tell you, at no stage of his speech did I ever get a feeling that he doesn't want to make money and that he doesn't believe that free is for life. So everything is positioned accordingly. And even for Wi-Fi that he believes he will install over next few years, he wants to charge for that Wi-Fi. It's not free of cost. I think what is very aggressive here is actually the customer acquisition policy. So for the first 3 months up to 31st December and the entire content package free till 2017 December are all very aggressive positions to basically make sure I want to induct as many people onto the network as possible in the given period in time. And I'm going to give more to the guy who comes in first and probably lesser to a guy who comes in later, because the termination period for the free is common to everybody. That means the early bird enjoys more. But I think as far as voice free is concerned for life, that is basically a transformation that India has to face now, because it's an IP network that RIL has launched or Jio has launched. Now that means that I am now converting every application, every service into data, and therefore I'm charging you for data. So you're paying for voice, but you're paying for voice as data. And therefore, now can the incumbents now not convert their networks into IP networks if they have to offer an equivalent to their customers? I think they'll have to think through. And like I told you before this conversation began in the first round, that they have 2G technology, they have 3G technology, they have 4G technology. Is it time for some of them to now get back on the table and say, we want to reform these technologies to completely IP-based technologies going forward? And therefore, that means the death of 2G, the death of 3G, and 4G will become the minimum standard going forward. I think the consumer experience will define that. But I think one thing is for sure. Now for anybody to go and explain to the consumer that I'm charging you voice when alternatives are available in the market which don't charge for voice, although they charge for data, is going to be slightly difficult for all incumbent operators. So I think we are moving into a regime in this country of bucketed charges by operators, and one charge will cover all services that are to be provided to the consumer. I think that's going to be the order of the day going forward. So whether voice is free or voice is not free is only a matter of debate. But the fact is, consumer is going to have his life simplified, and consumer is not going to be for any surprise, because he is going to pay for only one service, which is the data service going forward.
You really
so I think
have
a
hit
bonanza
the
for the
nail on its
consumer
head,
going
Sanjay,
forward.
there, because the consumer is not going to be satisfied whatever you explain him, the granularity. The consumer wants voice free. He's getting voice free elsewhere. Is he going to stick around with you is really the big question. But do stay with us, Sanjay Kapoor, because we've got to understand the macro picture as well. But I want to get in our markets desk into this discussion, because if you actually see the stock movements that are happening, big gashes as far as Idea Cellular, Bharti Airtel, Reliance Communication is concerned. So shareholders there and investors there are a worried lot. Will revenue models will have to change? How much pressure is incumbent industry going to be under? This is extremely aggressive rollout that Mukesh Ambani has announced for the next 3 months. It's going to be free. This is the offer. This was the big bone of contention. We're going to go across all of that in just a bit. But I do want to ask Deven Choksi, before I throw it across to Neeraj Shah, how worried would you be if you were a GSM shareholder today, if you were a Bharti Airtel shareholder? Look at the deep gashes on Bharti, down about 7.5 odd percent as we speak right now. Idea down over 8%, Reliance Communication down over 4%, Bharti actually down about 6 odd percent as we talk. But Deven Choksi, how worried would you be, and how much of your revenue model will have to now change if you were a GSM operator? Because the rules of the game are all set to change, and there's no denying that.
Yes, fortunately, I am not investor in any of the current telcos. I think, and my view remains that I think the current telcos definitely have a business to change their business model. I think I've been maintaining this view since last more than 1.5 to 2 years now. I believe that as we heard Mukesh Ambani ji, today in the AGM, the complete IP based network that they have brought in, is a game changer. And the voice which is getting free, is a game changer. The current telcos are offering voice as their primary product, and data as a secondary product. They will have to change this revenue model, and probably the data becomes a primary product. It's not going to be so easy for current telcos for two reasons. One, their network is not going to be easily shifted over to a complete data network from the voice network at this point of time. They may have to probably substantially invest in the technology which is tower to fiber technology, wherein they will be able to change that network, and that is going to take its own time. That is first point. The second point, as I see it, even if they have to make this particular investment, it's going to be huge amount of money which will have to be spent for in building the tower to fiber network, and that would have time apart from the cost. These two aspects, which I believe, and particularly the second aspect, many of the companies' balance sheets are not permitting them, unless they capitalize further. It's not permitting them at current levels to spend further money on this particular change in the technology. So definitely, next 2 to 3 years, as I see it, are going to be painful years for current telcos. Unfortunately, they have lived on this particular model of charging voice when the entire world moved away from it long back. They have lived for a longer period of time, and I guess they'll have to reinvent in next 2 to 3 years time onto the new model. Probably the return on the wall, they would probably have to face the pressure onto the profits eventually in coming years, at least till the time they change over the network.
Writing on the wall, but I want to take this across to Neeraj Shah. And Neeraj, we must point out that Reliance, that was trading in the green before the speech began, has now slipped into the red. So it's not just the telecom operators that are in the red, but so is Reliance Industries. Do you believe there is a sense of overcommitment that shareholders are perhaps not very comfortable with? I want you to take forward this discussion, but I do have that question for you.
Yeah, that is probably, you hit the nail on the head, Supriya, let me put it that way, because so I heard Sanjay Kapoor say that at no point of time in the speech did he feel that Mukesh Ambani didn't want to make money, but at no point of time during this entire speech as well, at least to the common shareholders, we've been talking to a few institutional investors as well, they're all saying that the pricing seems to be predatory in nature, something that Reliance does very well at the start, and therefore for now, the biggest investment that they have done doesn't seem to be something that will make money for them in the near term, and probably shareholders are watching for the near term as well. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Reliance has kind of dwindled into green as well, because remember in the morning we were talking about how there doesn't seem to be a likelihood of any announcement coming in that will aid the stock price of Reliance Industries. And that hasn't, I mean, this speech also hasn't done that. I want to get in Sushil Choksey. I would also get in a comment from Sanjay Kapoor. I'm sure Supriya will have a lot of questions for all of these gentlemen as well. We also have a Sher Khan representative here. But Sushil, to you first, get in the Reliance perspective here as well. We've been talking about telcos all through. Just a quick word on Reliance as well. What did you think of this? I mean, it probably gets them the subscribers in a hurry. Does it get them any kind of money over the next couple of years from this venture?
See, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show. I think Jio launch is going to be a very positive move where shareholders' value is concerned. All of us know for last 2.5, 3 years, every AGM we waited for some kind of announcement. It's a move which they've made with this AGM, and the way the launch has been highlighted today with the great coverage which all the business channels have done. I think getting a subscriber base is not going to be a big challenge in the next 3 months. Once the subscriber base is there, the experience will decide how digital is going to change the life. All of us know today what kind of money we spend per month per user at home, a family of 4 in big metros, and what kind of capex and individual money which we have spent on our bills. So, I am not worried on the top line of Reliance Jio. We need to see what happens on a 12-month basis. But at least the money is not going to be sunk in something which is not making revenue. So, the fear of analysts or the investors where Reliance Jio is concerned is over to today's launch date announcement. And I would look forward to what other competitors are going to do where voice is free from Reliance Jio. So, what action they take against the competition which is started.
Okay. Deven, you want to come in with quick thoughts on this as well? What does it mean for the revenue pie of Reliance between Telecom?
Okay, I think some back of the envelope quick calculations, Neeraj. I think assuming that under this tariff plan which they have offered to all, I think for first 3 months which is free, including concessions given to students, assuming that 10 crore customers that he has spelled out as a target for his team, I think they acquire aggressively under these free offerings in, say for example by December ended, or maybe I think January, February ended FY17, in that kind of a situation, you would probably have in the very first year of operation, which is the full year of operation, which is 17-18, a 10 crore customer base. Now, on a 10 crore customer base, I think if you look at even the voice free and take data into account and assume that some of the large data users may shift over onto this particular network at a price at which they are offering, quite likely that they will shift over to this network, in which you would probably end up having a revenue book of on 10 crore customers at 2,500 crores per month, which is 30,000 crore per annum. Now, if this offering is to succeed in FY18 and probably if the customer base gets doubled, for which this network has been created, you are talking of revenue base of between 30,000 crore to 60,000 crore in FY18. On that revenue base, if you calculate EBITDA margin of 45% to 50%, whatever way you want to take it, it would be somewhere around 27,000 to 30,000 crore kind of a EBITDA performance for the company. Take out the interest and depreciation out of it, I think the company would be in profits in the first year itself. As I see it, I think if they end up making a profit of between 10 to 10,000 crores, I think in the first year, probably it would contribute to somewhere around 35% of current profits of Reliance itself. And that's where I think you are talking of big game changer happening in this business. Through this
Fair call.
business.
Now, so that's the discussion on Reliance. Sanjay Kapoor, I just want you to come in here from somebody who is an investor in a telecom company, incumbent telecom company. Idea, a large voice subscription base. Bharti, as we understand, 70% revenue coming in from voice plus SMS. And they have only announced price cuts in the data packs until now, in the last ones that we've seen a few. This hits the large 70% revenue base of Bharti and Idea. And there will be migration as well of existing customers. I hear a few people in my office saying that they would want to try out Reliance as well. What kind of an impact comes in for the next 12-month revenue base for companies such as Bharti or Idea?
Look, first of all, I believe that the incumbents will try their level best to retain their high-end customers, and there have been some other announcements that they made in the recent past to hold on to their existing customers. But I think taking a bigger picture here, obviously the news and the aggressive stance that Jio is entering with is not good for the industry overall. And in the short run, if I'm an investor in the Indian telecom market, I will say, let me hold till I see the entire canvas shift from the operators, because what will happen is this is going to call for a new strategy by everybody in the market, where we are moving to bucketized plans, where you pay one tariff and you're covered for everything, including voice. If there is gradual migration that's going to happen, I will wait for that to happen. So I will wait for how Airtel reacts to it, how Idea reacts to it, how Voda reacts to it, and they're the three main players in the market. So I think it's going to be a wait and watch from an industry standpoint, where everybody will wait for the next moves from these three large incumbents in the marketplace. And I think then we'll be able to draw some conclusion out of how things are moving. And like we said, right now, the winner, it seems, that will be decided based on the tariff changes and the pricing changes. But I've very openly and vehemently said that the ultimate sustainable winner in this market is going to come out of the user experience. And the operators who will create the best user experience will create stickiness for the long term. So I think let the new challenger deliver, and let the incumbents come out with their counter to how the game is being changed in the marketplace. And then I think over the next couple of quarters, we will know which way the direction of this industry is really moving. But as an investor, I would like to stay put at this time and say, let me not move, let me see how the game changes, and then I will take my bets in the marketplace.
Sanjay, hold your thoughts there, because I do have many more questions coming your way. But Sushil Choksey, want to rope you in the discussion. Reliance has is at the day's low point. It's in fact down almost a percentage point as we talk at 1,049. What do you think markets are worried about? Because Reliance does need a bare minimum number of subscribers for this to be successful. It's all right to say it's very aggressive, and the only two things that make an operator successful in a service like this will have to be network rollouts and a subscriber base. Reliance does not have the second option right now. Is that what markets are worried about? I mean, what is making investors nervous in Reliance as we speak? Sushil?
The market is not able to gather what kind of revenue or a EBITDA telecom business will make for Reliance if you take a 12-month annualized run rate from 5th September to next 5th September. Keep in mind that today Reliance core business is doing well, and the next 12 to 18 months is going to elevate them to a next level as a petrochemical giant in the world. Not only for new initiatives, but the core business which is doing well. So a story where core business is doing well, Jio was a big investment, doesn't make money, but the core business will have a 20% EBITDA growth, which is sustainable. Jio achieves a base of a customer in next 3 to 6 months. Whether we achieve 10 million customers, 20 million customers, or much more, we need to watch out. But at the time, current stock operations or stock performance is led by the core business, and people are estimating Jio is not contributing anything. So I would be an investor with a core business which is likely to do well, and Jio becomes a bonus. And my perception, based on one statement which I heard from Mukesh Ambani, that he wants to market 250 crore GB at 50 rupees average, which he's taken, put a discount of 25%, 30%, whatever, and multiply the revenue on an annual run rate, what becomes the revenue with no voice cost.
All right, hold your thoughts there, because I do want to get in Sanjeev Panda from Sharekhan also into this discussion. And Sanjeev, the point that Sushil was making, that here am I, an investor of Reliance Industries, where the core business is firing on all cylinders, but RIL Jio isn't a revenue raker right now. It is not producing the numbers. It's got ambitious rollout plans. It's got ambitious plans as far as subscriber acquisition is concerned. But the reality of life is that incumbents are boasting of numbers right now, and RIL Jio isn't. Is that something that would make, is that what is making investors nervous?
What I can read from all the discussion and all that the announcement that goes in, certainly we are entering into a new era, especially Reliance, with considering the voice call, free voice call kind of. As already discussed by somebody in the panel, that the revenue side we don't see much of doubt, as the number they're targeting at we see that this could be a potential 50-60,000 crore kind of number on the top line side. So the entire thing now comes down to how the cost structure would be and how the profitability would be. If that is something that we all are probably not very clear on how it is going to be, but the kind of offer they had talked in the AGM seems that they are going to get a lot of significant attention from the to get attraction of new customers. Another point that I would like to make is how many of them who are being offered at this point of time on the free to paid service post that is offered to the paid basis, how much of them will be converted, that is going to play a critical role. And the second point that would like to see that when the voice free voice service will be, everything will be on the data, or how the quality of that call would be. Because at this point of time what we have experiencing is that data based service provider who are providing calls are probably not comparable to what we are getting in the voice basis. So if that Reliance could could breach that, probably that's going to be a very transformational. That point we have to see.
Your thoughts there, because I want to get in Sanjay before I throw it back to Neeraj for getting a market perspective. But Sanjay, the fight on this whole telecom battle, as far as RIL Jio is concerned, is not just about profitability that we've spoken about. It is also about relevance, and that relevance will come in only when that second box is ticked, which is to have an adequate number of subscribers. It's all very good to have a captive audience like this. How many can they acquire, and how many will incumbents stand to lose?
Yes, Supriya, how many they can acquire and how quickly they can acquire as well. You see, there's a program that they might have assumed will generate so many number of customers in the given time period. So given time period here is December 16. What happens if Reliance Jio cannot get those many customers till December 16? Will they extend this free program by another 3 months? That could be a possibility, because don't forget that the task for them is not over. They still have, at least 5 balls being juggled in the air. They are still rolling out networks. They have to get to 90% coverage of the country. I'm sure their eyes must be on all periphery systems to make sure they fire to ensure that the customer experience is good. And they have to enroll so many customers to come in. Everybody may not come in with an Aadhaar card. So there could be delays on that count. There could be systemic delays, and systemic failures do happen, which is pragmatic stuff when it comes to acquiring customers. So my belief is that I think in the next 3-4 months, we will know whether this program is further getting elongated or not getting elongated, and whether it's firing to the extent that they believed it will fire. Second, this will also depend on number portability, because a lot of people don't want to give up their number even if they want to give up their operator. Now, what happens? Will there be a smooth flow of number portability from incumbents to Reliance Jio? Or will it have its own challenges as they go along? Or will the customer shed his number and say, I don't care, let me acquire another SIM from Reliance Jio because I need it desperately. So one doesn't know, one doesn't have answers to these questions right now. But as things unfurl over the next 3-4 months, I think we'll find out a little more about how quickly will Reliance be clocking in revenues going forward. So I think that's still a little bit of uncertainty that we need to wait and watch.
Well, that's well said. Let me just try and figure out what damage could it be to stock prices of all these three, because the price war is detrimental for all. Now, Deven Choksi, come in on this. How does the incumbent protect its turf? Would it come naturally via way of some price cuts that could come in voice and further price cuts that would come in data, because the data pricing as well as I see it is substantially lower than what the incumbent or what I'm using for my service. And let me not say which service it is or national TV. But it is not a Reliance service. Will that happen? Will that lead to losses or a reduction in revenue and EBITDA for the existing telcos? And is that detrimental for the stock price? Bharti, Idea, Arcom maybe.
See, the challenge, Neeraj, here would be that 70 to 80% of the revenue comes to existing telco by way of voice, and balance comes out of data. Now, here the network is basically predominantly a voice network and a not data network. Data network is supplementarily added, as I see it. in case of Reliance Jio, I think they brought in a completely data network and they are running voice on the data network, which is I think the IP based technology that they have used it. So for them to convince the customer to shift over, I think for free voice, I think it's very easy because I think they have got this network supporting them. Incumbents will have a challenge in form of I think changing the network, and that is the task by itself as I understand, because any network that you want to change and bring the tower to fiber technology which they have produced in case of Jio, I think that would probably demand not only capex but it would be a time consuming affair. Unless they have a methodology in which I think they would start riding on the network of Reliance Jio and I think pay them the lease rental, I guess I think they will have to spend capex on that particular aspect, and that is going to be a cause of worry, because I think for their balance sheets, I think to either go for this capex program, they will have to capitalize their balance sheets further, or their debt balance sheet is not permitting them to go for further debts. So it's going to be a challenging situation for most of them. I'm sure I think they have done their homework well. Let them also respond back as to how they want to I think change over to this new challenge which has come up through this offering of Reliance Jio. Probably we understood that the voice is going to become free because of the IP based network, and they too have must have understood. Probably they have to respond to it as to how soon, how fast they would change over. But clearly in the near term, the revenue book is dented as we see it very clearly.
All right, revenue book dented in the near term. That's the word coming from Deven Choksi, but we are glad to have Rajan Matthews back with us right here on ET Now. And Rajan, some time has flown and some water has flown under the bridge as well, and it looks like the market is a little concerned about whether Reliance has overcommitted because this isn't still a revenue raker. But the other big concern is, are GSM operators going to take up that free voice calling with the regulator? That's question number one that's coming your way. And question number two really had to do with the fact that from a GSM point of view and the big GSM, do you believe Reliance has overcommitted?
That's a hard call to make, Supriya, in terms of have they overcommitted. Clearly, they've got adequate spectrum. I think the point to keep in mind is that the network that is rolling out right now is a 2300 megahertz based LTE network. So, I mean, this is one of the leading edge technologies. So, as Sanjay appropriately put out, there's going to be some shakeout in terms of the technology, the customer experience. So, we have to pay careful attention to this. And also remember that this is a bundled offer. How you parse the amounts between data and voice depends on the end user. It's quite appropriate and quite feasible that operators who see that the predominant usage is voice can still price voice, because although Reliance calls it zero, there is a bundled rate attached to it. So I think this is where the dynamics of the marketplace are going to be played out, because also remember that most of the incumbents have very good relationships. They've been in this, and please don't forget that they are the ones who introduced the first voice revolution. What makes you think that they're not going to be able to play in the introduction of the next revolution, which is the data revolution? I think they have the experience under their belts, and I'm sure that RIL and all the competitors are going to, one, focus on the consumer, which is a good thing. I think that's where the battle needs to be fought, and that's where we'll see the outcomes.
It really is time to call the spade a spade, and we've done enough of the grandeur around the launch. It's time to call it, to call a spade, like I said. And Rajan and Sanjay, these questions are coming your way. And Rajan, if I may ask you, Mukesh Ambani very clearly said from the 5th of September up until the end of this year, there is free welcome for people who want to join in the Reliance Jio, and this was a big bone of contention with you. What is your recourse right now? Are you just going to sit there, watch it unfold? Rajan?
So I think first of all, there's the old saying, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck, right? I think no matter how you sort of encapsulate the experience, for most instances, if you look at all of the component pieces, I think September 5th is in effect the commercial launch, if it's not already happened before. This definitively says, for all intents and purposes, is a commercial launch. You've got a bundled offer. So again, we will look at the bundled offer. You can't say, hey, voice is given away free. That's a headline. It's a bundled offer. It's all depending upon how you allocate the numbers. So again, we'll wait to see how that passes in terms of December 31st versus September 5th. What is the call that the DOT or the TRAI might take now that this additional information is available? But this whole issue of the interconnect and the regulatory issues will hinge upon the call that is made. Are you in commercial service, which we have always said you are? Are you still proposing that you are in quote unquote test mode? And so therefore all of this is outside of the ambit of regular commercial, regulatory and DOT license oversight.
Sanjay, do you agree that from the 5th of September onwards, RIL Jio will be under regulatory regime for all practical purposes?
Thinking in terms of what the regulator has done to others in the past, I think they ideally should be, because they will now be inducting customers onto the network. But they don't have to worry, because they are on a rev share, and rev share will only be given when they start earning money from the customer. If they're not giving any, or they're not earning any money from the customer, they're not going to give any rev share to the government. So fine. I mean, theoretically, they should be on a full-fledged commercial launch from 5th of September. But my own take on this is that I think even given the incumbent operators, they will wait and watch. I think they will wait and watch for how this unfurls for at least a given period in time. And I don't know what that given period in time is. The threshold could be different. It could be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Like we did the first time when there were 8 new operators in the market. We waited and saw what was the consumer reaction. And I think here also they will wait for the consumer reaction and the consumer experience before they really go and make big bets. But I think the questions that must be, really pondering in their minds would be around technologies, to say, what are the technology bets that we need to take now, because they are long lead time items. They're not like tariffs that you can replace tomorrow. So I think any technology bets that any incumbent has to take on 2G, 3G versus 4G, or a mix of those, I think those are the bigger questions that they must be putting on the table right now and debating, because that's going to take some time before they can unfurl and react to Reliance Jio's move.
Rajan, I have 2 questions for you, and they're both pointed questions. Point of interconnection has been a big bone of contention. Now, if the Jio offer was to be taken up, will you offer more point of interconnection? Because Mukesh Ambani in a speech started off by saying it has to be rigorous competition, we have to inspire each other, and then towards the end reminded you of your legal obligation under license conditions to provide those point of interconnection. So A, are there enough points of interconnection? Because that is what will hinge upon the services. That's point number 1. And point number 2 is, what can big GSM do? Can data be made free?
So again, the first question, Supriya, I think Mr. Ambani really hit the nail on the head by saying it's a license issue. And that's precisely the point you were saying, is that what is the license position? The contention of the incumbents has been that their understanding of the license conditions indicates that this is really no longer a test. And so therefore, it ought to be classified as a commercial service. And under commercial service terms, you're more than within your right to ask for additional capacity. That additional capacity is required to be provided in a 90-day time frame. That's a requirement. If you're not in a commercial service, then you're really outside of the ambit of quote unquote the license condition and perhaps anything on the regulatory side. This is that gray area. And so the incumbents are saying, as long as you choose to say that you are in a quote unquote trial period, these are inappropriate, if you will, or inordinate load factors, which are not to be seen if you start beginning to charge for this. So therefore, if you go into commercial service, we are more than happy to comply with the license terms. We are more than happy to ensure that there's adequate spectrum, or not spectrum, adequate interconnection points, and the congestion is taken care of. If you continue to say you're on test, then we are not under, or the incumbents are not under an obligation, as they believe, to provide any additional capacity beyond the 15 to 20 million that they've already provided to RIL Jio.
Okay, and those are some interesting talk points, and we should do more of this as well. Gentlemen, request you to stay on. I have to get in Ajay Srinivasan here. He's been waiting very, very patiently with us. So all 4 of you, please request you to stay on for a bit longer. But Ajay Srinivasan from CRISIL. Ajay, thanks for joining in. Let's get some numbers going. What are your calculations telling you? From whatever you heard from the AGM, as also, what would it mean for the incumbents if they have to go out and cut the voice tariffs?
Yeah, I think quite clearly the quantum of pricing decline and the aggression in the tariff is much higher than our expectations. And it very clearly points out that the market paradigm is going to change forever. Voice calls, which today accounts for close to 75% of the industry revenues, they are going to be made free. That clearly will bring pressure on the incumbent operators to reduce voice tariffs. Data tariffs too, which have been announced, are about 70 to 75% cheaper than existing data tariffs, which again will put pressure on the incumbents. But my own sense is that the incumbents will wait and watch on the details of these plans and whether there is any devil in the detail. And then they will start calibrating their plan offerings to be able to compete effectively with Jio. And this also further spices up the likely scenarios in the spectrum auctions, because to be able to effectively compete by offering cheaper data, which again will lead to a surge in usage, some of the incumbent operators will also have to acquire more 4G spectrum to be able to be in a position to do so.
Okay. Fair call. Sushil Choksi, have you done some back of the envelope calculations and what it would mean for each of these three names? I mean, we're talking about the price damage in Idea and Bharti. Yes, Reliance itself is not really getting anything meaty today in terms of price reactions by virtue of these announcements as well. What would your thoughts be on what it would mean for each of these three names, particularly Reliance?
I think one needs to wait for the consumer base they achieve over a period of 3 months. So, rather than getting excited about what package who's going to announce over a period of 3 months is, I think we'll watch out. But I think clear message is there that the voice revenue of the competitors is going to be lost over a time to a fraction of what is today. So, the 75% goes down to 50 or 35, we don't know right now. But I think everybody is going to keep a watch on it, and the basic reality will be only known by a consumer experience on either of the networks. One will have to upgrade, the other one will have to prove that their quality is better, and the data, which is the prime focus, is supporting the cause of what Reliance is looking for. So, if based on a sustainable model on either side, one needs a far greater experience will decide in favor of Reliance Jio, and the other side people will have to make a huge capex even for spectrum buying, which will lead to a problem for those operators. So, I think win-win situation, one should be positive on Reliance, the other side I would wait for a situation to watch out post December numbers.
All right, markets are slowly inching in the green. I'm going to hand it over to Neeraj Shah to take it forward on that action. But I have a quick last question for you, Sanjay. And I know we will talk later this evening in more detail on that. But my question really is, forget about the investors for 1 second. Forget about the stakeholders, the shareholders. Let's talk about the consumer. If I was a telecom consumer in India today, how do I stand to gain? Am I confused? Do I have my hands full? Or do I have to really see the granularity of what is going to be really offered to me?
I think on the face of it, I'd be happy because suddenly there is a good news around 70% of my bill, which says it'll be free. I need to find out a little more details, but I think there'll be some bit of euphoria to begin with. And secondly, moving into buckets gives you see, data always gets priced on KBs, MBs, GBs that the consumer doesn't understand. But if you put a bucket and tell him this is all you do, this is all you can eat in this, I think he understands that a lot more easily and simplistically. So according to me, from a consumer standpoint, there is good news, and also a trial period where I'm saying I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. Right? I told you I'm going to come with a good network. Now please try that network. Now that's a risk that you're taking, because if somebody comes, savors your network for 3 months and then leaves it, that's not a good news for you. But you only do it when you have some confidence. So I think from a consumer standpoint, there is a long enough period which is being given to him to say, okay, these services are on a trial with you, go try them out. And if you are happy, continue. If you're not happy, go wherever you want to. I think from a consumer standpoint, it's good news all the way. It's good news on data, it's good news on voice, it's good news on content, and it's also a good news on the trial period to say, build your confidence before you join me for life.
So Sanjay, you've been the chief executive in India's largest telecom company, and if you were still at Airtel, what do you think is going on in that executive committee room? How are things really panning out for Indian telecom operators? What do you think Mr. Mittal is really doing right now? or for that matter, Sunil Sood or Vittorio Kalau, wherever he is?
You know, I would not, I would, I would not like to take that question from a Airtel perspective, but all I can say in a very generalistic fashion is that if I'm an incumbent telecom operator, I'd be thinking about a lot of things. And it's not that they would not have been thinking about these things and preempting a launch for the last many quarters. I think they would have been doing it gradually. But right now, I think they're faced with bigger questions on investment, on what do I do with existing technologies? How do I treat voice when the customer perception is going to be that voice is free? And how do I now move everything to bucketized plans? Because over time, I have amassed hundreds of plans that the customer consumes. And also, there are certain barriers on coupons and certain schemes that I float in the market every day. Now, this is moving away from that into a more transparent regime where a customer gets a package, then he sticks to that package. So I think they'll have to think through a lot of things once again. And this is also repositioning the brand going forward. How do I reposition my brand going forward vis-a-vis this challenger in the market? So I think there are many questions that will be crossing their minds, but don't forget, they are the people who have existing revenues in their control. They have existing consumer base in their control. And they also have a favor from the consumers on their brand. The consumer resonates with that brand. So I don't believe this is all going to get unshackled overnight. There are challenges. They will wait. They will see how the market reacts to this. And I'm sure they'll come back with their answers to this. So both long-term and short-term questions are there on their table. But, this can't be a one player takes it all market. It never behaves like that any other part of the world. There'll be 3-4 operators that will survive. And there are some very strong incumbents in the market who will have their strategies to counter this going forward.
Absolutely. They haven't been sitting there thinking what will life bring to them tomorrow. They must be working on their strategies. But Sanjay Kapoor, we thank you very much for joining us. We'll, of course, talk later this evening in more detail about Reliance Jio and its consumer applications. But markets slowly inching into the green. The same story cannot be told about the telecom stocks. Bloodbath there, if I may use that term rather freely. But it's over to Neeraj Shah to take that action forward.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.